Hello and welcome. I'm Rosemary Pena, President of the Black German Heritage and Research Association. Our conversation today is the third in our fall 2023 event series in collaboration with and for our students at Davidson College. My colleague, Dr. Emily Fraser-Rath, and I are delighted to introduce the multifaceted, multi-talented, inimitable Lena Whooo. But before we begin, I'll ask Emily if she will kindly share a little about our work together before introducing and turning the conversation over to Lena and our Davidson students. Emily?
Thank you, Rosemary. My name is Emily Fraser-Rath, and I'm the Executive Director of Education Initiatives for the BGHRA. Thank you very much for listening in today. I am also a visiting assistant professor of German Studies at Davidson College, where I co-teach our current course with Rosemary entitled Black German Art and Resistance. Today is November 28th, 2023, and we, Dr. Pena, me, and most importantly, our students, are in our our second to last week together in our German 231 class. This class is conceived of in three parts. It is first a survey course in the field of Black German cultural studies. Second, it is a community-based learning course as we support the BGHRA through our work, and will feature our final projects on the BGHRA archive after December 15th when they're due. And it is, most importantly, an opportunity for students, and through these recordings, our broader BGHRA and Davidson communities, to speak with people whose lives and work are at the intersections of artistic expression, resistance and activism, and identity, among many other things in modern day Europe and beyond. For today's class visit, I would like to thank my colleagues in German Studies and the Center for Civic Engagement and Director Stacy Reimer for all of your support. I'd also like to thank Susan Archer, our administrative assistant, for helping to make these visits possible. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lena Whooo, who is joining us today. And the students have read a few excerpts from her book entitled Unfulfilled, Lyrik und Kurzgeschichten über Identität, die Freiheit und das Leben, or Unfulfilled, poetry and short stories about identity, freedom, and life. And so with that, I'll turn things over to Lena and to our students for what I'm sure will be an awesome conversation.
Thank you so much, Emily and Rose, for introducing me, also for giving me this space and like this beautiful room to talk a little bit about my work and to get hopefully into like really nice conversations and discussions. Maybe first of all, I can tell you a little bit about how I came to write this book or publish this book, because every now and then still when I tell people that I published this book, I do get the response of like, wow, like that's so surprising. How come you still seem so young? And like in general, I don't even know any authors like that, especially not really like Black or German authors like that. And that's actually where it came from, like the wish on my own to have a book that I can take out of my shelf and be like, oh wow, you know, this author resembles me in some way or another. So that was something very empowering, I guess, in the process of publishing, because I felt I'm not publishing for myself, but like rather a whole generation of us is publishing right now and is reclaiming their voices and is trying to be visible and is trying to be heard. That's more of like the motive and the intention. And I always was a very creative person. I would always write. My first stories I literally wrote when I started writing, and they're very crappy stories about me and my little sister, like being in holes and whatever, trying to run away from spiders, like really, yeah, blatant stuff. But yeah, I never really like stopped expressing through art, and writing is just one way that I choose to express, and that helps me a lot to also process a lot of my emotions and a lot of the thoughts that I have. And yeah, that's why over the years I kind of collected these short stories and these poems that I had already. And like a lot of other artists, in COVID, we had time and no other projects really to work on. So I was realizing that I actually could put all these collections of texts that I had, put them into a form and give it a name and kind of like find a direction of where I want these texts to go. And that's when I started actually adding more text to it, and also my sketches, which wasn't really a plan at all in the beginning. And yeah, I guess that's how my book came to be. So yeah,
Wonderful.
I was kind of curious about why you decided to write in both German and English in like include pieces in the same book with both of them. So could you talk about that for a little bit?
yeah, thank you so much. Super valid question. Yeah, English has always been a language to me that felt very native, even though it's not my mother tongue. I grew up with German, and I always had a lot of English influences in my life. Like ever since I was young, I heard English around me, and therefore I always processed with English as well, but just not as how should I say, like precise. In German, I was always a lot more precise, and therefore I started writing very early in both languages. It just happened. I just started to write in both languages. As I said, like I used to start writing just because I wanted to express something that I didn't even know really what it was. I just wanted to express. And every now and then I feel like I want to express in German, and then sometimes other things I really just feel like I need to express them in English. So I can't really explain why I have these or why I have specific text in specific languages. But I guess the answer to your question is because I just naturally write in both languages and feel very familiar with both. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Also, I guess like very yeah, like a very big experience I had was like in 2013, I used to be an au pair in Connecticut, and there I really kind of like got way more in touch with, yeah, the US American accent and like the English and terms, I guess. And yeah, like ever since I didn't really let that go. I keep on coming back to New York and stuff. So like I just fall in love more and more with the language. Yeah. Thank you. Is there any other questions at the moment?
I'm curious of who inspires you. So, like some of the artists that you might most closely align your creative processes or work with.
That's a question that I get like asked a lot, and I can never really answer it that well, because I usually feel like I want to answer with artists that are like popular, that everybody knows, that I know the names of, but that's not necessarily the case. I guess in writing, the biggest influence in terms of like me wanting to be heard and my intention to kind of like speak for more than myself is May Aim, if that is a name for you. And yeah, but I wasn't really growing up with her literature though, so I can't really say it inspired me in producing my art and like in how I write, but the intention that I had, like that was really aligned actually with May Aim, because I came across her work and that really inspired the spark of me like, oh wow, like could I be also like, could I be having this role someday, like where people look back and be like, oh wow, like this person inspires me to wanting to feel like speaking for more people than myself, like being bigger, being like activistic with the art that you do. But yeah, in terms of really like seeing something and like really liking it and inspiring it, I think maybe Keith Haring, because I draw these cute dudes. I mean, let me just show my book again. And like a lot of people already gave me like, yeah, this reminds me of Keith Haring. And a lot of times they have weird positions or whatever. And I mean, I see that. And I also came across his work very early in my school. We used to like paint the little figures, like color them in. So yeah, maybe those two names I could drop, like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've seen that you do a lot of different forms of art. You know, we talked about how you do like you do poetry, which we read. You've done sculptures, and I believe you're also an actress. So why do you choose to do so many different forms of art instead of just specializing in one?
Thank you. That's a very good question. And I'm actually like really, yeah, I love to talk about it. So it's actually that these forms of art, they chose me. And this sounds like really, I guess, cringe, right? But that's really how it happens. Like, as I said, I just happen to express through writing, and also painting gives me a lot, as much as acting, because I just get to switch perspectives so much on life. And it gives me such a great opportunity to mirror and reflect that back on me and my personality. And it just happened that these art forms connected and clicked. I just didn't happen to play an instrument, for instance, so that I could express with music. I'd never really felt comfortable with my voice, with singing, so I didn't express through singing. I started dancing very early, and that also felt like I could really express through that, but then I lost touch because I had to start working. So it wasn't really accessible for me to dance anymore, like with the crew and the spot where we used to like have our trainings. So yeah, those art forms, they kind of chose me. Writing was always accessible. When I drove to work or to school on the train, I would still write sometimes. And yeah, even acting. I mean, I feel like I did that in so many different ways, just because in life we always have to choose different masks, and depending on how actively you realize how you change in different spaces when you are with different people, then I think this almost counts as such, or like you can at least take your lessons from it, like when you then practice or learn from acting, when you actually go to school and learn some certain strategies. Mm. So yeah, I feel like I specialize over time, to answer basically the second part of your question. I don't feel like I want to specialize on one thing only, because it takes the fun out of it for me too. I do believe that we live life also for fun and for enjoyment. And for me, Black joy is a term that is not really talked about as much, but I think it's very important and empowered to know that we should allow ourselves to be joyful, and not everything should be a hassle and a hustle and stress. So I like to be actively enjoying my life. And yeah, there I feel like I don't want to be too stubborn on learning a specific skill. Like sometimes when I feel like I don't want to learn further, like specifically with certain forms of drawing, because I'm very impatient. I don't like to sketch like realistically or whatever. So like if I do want to or need to do that because I want something to look nice, then I just rest for a while sometimes, and then I take upon that task later. And in between, I might have released my how should I say, frustration with another art form that I do, because I just practice so many things. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, because I felt like I had to make a lot, like, yeah, go around that question to kind of like get into detail what I want to tell you. Thank you.
What piece of work are you most proud of?
Oh, that's also a very interesting question. Oh, wow. Because I think, I think it would be my book. Yeah, I think it would be my book, because I really, did everything by myself. I mean, at some point I had to get the publishing house, and they had people that reread the work and whatever. Like, of course, there was other people collaborating with me in the process of being published, but I had to generate the funds for it to be published. And I did the cover art, I wrote the text on the back, and everything actually I did by myself. And it feels really nice that I had this freedom and creativity over a piece of work that is now accessible to anyone, and that actually also holds a lot of the values somewhere spread somewhere in different places, but holds the values that I live by at the moment, at least.
Could you read something from your book?
Oh, yeah, I could. What would you like to hear? Is there anything that like you'd like to hear?
Nothing special, whatever you'd like to share. Perhaps read a poem for us?
We spoke a lot about your zombies poem last week in class. So that's maybe one place to start.
All right, yeah, I like that. Let me see. It's like 150 something. Yeah, 55. All right. Okay. So, zombies. In a way, they decay on the phone, not quite alone, but almost connected with the Wi-Fi. But people are left out. It's like a century drought of engaging with one another, nor their mother, mostly no father figures of speech are part of the stuff that build our personalities in or online with those unsocial media platforms. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, like I'm so curious now. Maybe you could like enlighten me about what you talked about in class, and maybe I can just like, I don't know, talk about a few things in regards to that.
In class we talked about like the rhythm of that poem and like how you're supposed to read it. And like when you were just reading it, I noticed how you put like emphasis on some words and like highlighted like certain meanings in the poem that you wanted to portray.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. I think weirdly the pronunciation or what did you call it? Tonation? Sorry.
Rhythm.
Oh, rhythm. Right. Thank you so much. The rhythm I think is really important in this one, actually. Like it carries the flow. Like it's basically almost like one sentence, but broken down. And yeah, I guess a lot of different thoughts in one sentence also.
And Jackson, how did you read that? Like
Sorry?
the disconnectedness.
Sorry, what was that?
How did you read? What's the meaning for you behind the sort of disconnectedness in the rhythm?
I guess it's just like it kind of creates like a sad tone when I read it to myself. Like when you one of the words that points out to me is like connected, but like I forget what the last part was, but it was just it kind of put like made it like a sad tone.
Yeah, I also feel like the isolation that kind of comes for me with this life of like just being really on our phones and like really engaged with our digital lives, but not really with the real world. I think that's also why I subconsciously chose to break it down so much, because yeah, like the thoughts and the sentences are really like strongly interrupted sometimes, and therefore, the words are being isolated from the meaning before, but they connect to the meaning for the next line. But then that one is already having a totally different meaning with the next line. So yeah, I would definitely say it's a lot about disconnection and isolation.
We also talked about structure and punctuation, specifically with zombies. We talked about punctuation, but for me, one of the things that stuck out in about Shooting Stars and some of the other works is that when you do quotations, you quote at the bottom of the line and then you do the other quote at the top of the line. I wanted to know what you were trying to structurally achieve by doing that, if it was anything at all, or if it was just like a creative choice you made.
That's how we quote in Germany, actually. Like we learn to quote in that way. Like we call them goose feet, technically. That's how we learn it in kindergarten, not kindergarten, but like school, elementary school. And yeah, we start the quote, or like when people are talking in stories, then we started down here and then we ended up here. Yeah. And then sometimes I guess I choose to use the like English quotation where I just use one up here and here. But actually, and yeah, interesting that you're making me like you're making me aware of this, you know, like I'd never really noticed that. That's actually quite interesting. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go through my work later and be like, you know, why did I do that like this here? And then this one is German, but I quote in English, and this one is English, but I quote in German. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned about Shooting Stars. If you would like me to, then I could also read it, just because. Why not?
Yes, I would definitely love to hear that one read.
All right, this is this one. All right, about Shooting Stars. I don't remember the day I swore myself that I wouldn't want to wish anything from a shooting star. My thoughts behind it were that my wishes won't come true if my future was built on luck, which made me change and switch out wishing for thanking once and for all. Now, every time I see a shooting star above or passing me, I am thankful for all the things in the past. Myself was built on that. I know myself. My future is already shining brighter than the sun and all the shooting stars I've seen combined. So now, whenever I see a stream of light beaming through the Black Sea filled with diamonds bright, I say, thank my soul for being so connected to all that's in the universe. I gaze upward, smile, and happily lose its sight.
Thank
Cute.
you for sharing that. I noticed something while you were reading, and this is also something we discussed in class. I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much space, guys. Please jump in and interrupt me if needed. But we talked about how like you can read the poems and it's very clear what's happening, but the more you read it, the more things you see. And when we just reread it, I noticed that when we get to the second part where we kind of shift from the wishes at a younger age and like knowing that things might not come true and that we might not have things to be grateful for. But then when we get to the next shooting stars line where we talk about combination, the word is combine, which is different from what we see in the earliest stanzas where it's disconnected. So I really enjoyed that. And I really love your work. I really do. I'm sorry if I sound like a fangirl, but I really just enjoy reading through your work.
Thank you so much. No, that's very touching. Like, I think it wouldn't be anything bad to come across as a fangirl or anything, you know? Like, that's just spreading love. And I really appreciate taking that love and give it right back to you. Like, thank you so much. Like, yeah. And you said so many right things. I can't even, I can't even add anything to that. It's amazing.
We pulled out some themes. Oh, sorry. We pulled out some themes from the excerpts that you gave us. And I'm wondering how would you thematize your work? Like what themes do you keep coming back to? Not only in your writing, but also in your artwork and your acting and so on and so forth.
I mean, like the greatest three themes, I guess, are very obvious because they're my subtitle of my work. You know, like I do work a lot like with myself just about identity, freedom, and like life. Yeah, that's so big, but that's what I mean. Like I really am so interested in perspectives and how life is kind of like perceived in so many different ways, how people live life in so many different ways. I'm very, very interested in perspectives, but also I guess love, therefore, is a very big theme and topic for me because that's just such a big part of life, in my opinion, at least. So yeah, I think that sums it up for me, technically. What have you found out? I'm so curious.
Do you all remember some of the themes we pulled out last week?
Because I bet they're all right. It's just that I don't really like, you know, it's so hard to kind of put that analytic view on your own work. So like, it's kind of really amazing to see like all these specific perspectives that you have, like, and that you're like sharing with me about my work, because they're new perspectives like that I'm being aware of myself then. Like it's really amazing. So yeah, super
Yeah.
curious.
Some of the things we pulled out were the themes of self-reflection, so identity,
Yeah.
an analysis of what's going on around her in society, so the concept of witnessing, and the universe and our position within it. Those were the three that we pulled.
Wow, like I should note that, you know what I mean? and put this on my website. Like this is what my work's about. Yeah, this is really on point, isn't it? Self-reflection. That's all I am about. Yes. And while I'm doing this self-reflection, like I always kind of trying to see and rearrange myself within this universe, like this weird space that I feel like that I'm just dropped into. And yeah, I like to switch perspectives. So a lot of times also in the book, it won't be my perspective. Like like you might not even know, because it's supposed to seem as if it's my perspective, but I am doing the work while I write it, that I'm envisioning myself in a different space or place or being somebody else. And then I just write, but I don't necessarily mention that. Like, and one, it's really obvious. It's a German text that's called Belanglose Bahnfahrt, and it's about like somebody witnessing some, like a student on the train. And at some point there will be very noticeable that in this story, actually, obviously the person who you're reading the story from is not me. It's an old guy at the end of the day, but like you find that out later while you're writing. But this guy is witnessing this student, and while I read this story once to a friend of mine, she told me, is this dude like watching somebody that's you? Like, is this you? Are you watching yourself? And then it was like, oh my God, yes, actually, yes. Like that's what I did here. Interesting. So yeah, witnessing plays a big part in my work, but it's from very different standpoint. And it's also not always witnessing myself, but as you said, my surroundings and what's happening around me. So very accurate, very interesting to hear. Which is also, oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna ask, because you kind of touched on the influence of like your surroundings and your experiences and things of that nature. I'm curious to like how your experiences and your identity have been influential in your artistic expression and what you create, and if you would say that they are influential.
No, there's definitely influences, I would say, and this now sounds like very strict, I guess, but like for suppressing creativity, like I was being suppressed in different ways, not necessarily in the way of like where I got like slapped on my hands for being creative or whatever, but it was definitely, I wasn't engaged or supported to be creative. And therefore, I think it influenced me in the way that I always wanted to be very loud and very direct. Like, and with loud, I don't necessarily mean my voice, but that comes with it. I definitely also developed a way of performing loud. Like when I read my poetry, I also like really engage in my voice, for instance, and also in different performative work, I have no problem of like reaching the whole room with my voice. So I think that's definitely one thing, like being, yeah, trying to be very visible. And I'm not giving can I, like, how can I say this in a nice way? Not thinking to like, you all know what I mean. Like, not really caring too much about the opinions of others, especially if it's about me being creative. I feel like, yeah, sure, people could say that they like it or hate it. That's really fine, but it doesn't have to influence me in a way of that I feel like I need to change it then. I think since it's just me trying to express, I don't feel like I need to be judged necessarily by the standards of others. And that's a very relieving feeling also to have, like empowering, which also comes with the suppression, I think, that I once felt, right? Yeah. I hope that was an answer to your question.
It definitely was. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So is there like a certain effect or impact that you want your work to have on other people?
Yeah, I'd say definitely empowering. I would love for my community, like my work, to be very empowering. I want them, if they have any aspirations, to feel like they can take upon those dreams and aspirations like with confidence, because they deserve that and because they're able and capable to do these things. Because a lot of times we're told that we're not supposed to be in specific rooms. I was told in my face that I should not be an actor in Germany because people like me that look like me shouldn't or wouldn't get roles. So like I should not do that. And for a little bit, like I was influenced to believe that. And thankfully I had the other art forms like writing that saved me from like believing in myself and still taking up upon this quest eventually and being like, you know what? No, like whatever, I'll be an actor. If I feel like I want to be an actor, then I could still do that. Like doesn't matter what they think that I shouldn't be there or that don't have a space there. And yeah, that's what I want people to maybe feel as well. Like, hey, I want to be this and that, or I want to, I have these goals. Yeah, if that person did it, then maybe I could do it too. Like, yeah.
Okay, so you gained confidence, I guess, from your different forms of art.
Definitely. Like different forms of confidence in the different forms of art, actually. Yes. I felt more confident speaking through writing, just because I felt like I'm more clear about my thoughts and about who I was and what I feel, and that I'm not afraid to express that with my words, not just on paper, but also to people. And I think I felt more confident in being creative through painting, because as I said, I was always very unconfident about sketching because I really do suck at it. I'm not good at it. But then I just let go of having to be a realistic sketcher or a realistic painter. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I need to do. Like, right? If something else feels right to me, then I can just continue doing that. And I weirdly found those cute dudes, how I call them, and I feel very comfortable like painting those. So I just kept on doing that, and I got weirdly better at drawing them in like different ways and forms and with different backdrops and different colors, different sizes, on different canvases, on glass, on walls, on papers. I sprayed them, and that gave me like, yeah, a lot of creativity and then like confidence and my choices of being a creative, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I think acting just in general gives you confidence. Like, because yeah, I don't know, it's a weird since how do I say that, when something has an ultimate effect on something else, like almost like cells, right? They do that all the time. They take something in, but they release something out. So that's what I feel acting is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of the add on to that question, of like how you answered with impact. Do you think that all artists have like a responsibility to use their platform to be impactful, or do you think that doesn't apply to necessarily everyone?
Good question. This is just my personal opinion now, right? But I think no, not every artist has the responsibility to wanting to be impactful or to be impactful. So what I mean with that is, I think a lot of it has to do with intent and perception. And I think not for every artist that is being translated, like, how should I say? Like I can have the intention when I draw a picture, right? I can have a certain intention while I paint it. But then when I present it in a museum, it can be perceived really completely different, right? People can have the exact opposite feeling or emotion that I wanted to have people to have when I painted it. So just this concept alone, I think, makes it almost impossible to say every artist has to have this feeling of, like wanting to be impactful, because how can you ensure that? There's no way that you can ensure the impact that you want to put out there, I think. And also, we learn a lot of times that a lot of things that were just created by chance in a way, right? That they have the most impact. So, and I also agree that true creativity cannot really be planned as such. Like sometimes it just comes, it's an emotion to me. And then later on, you may be able to analyze this emotion that you had, this art piece that you then have, right? And then you can add intention into it. In my opinion, that's how I feel like I do it. Like I create, and then it's just there. And then if I'm being asked, I put intention into it. I really think about it again, and I'm like, what really did happen? Like, but I can't create with an intention. If you tell me to draw a picture that's supposed to make you happy, I can try that, and I would do the best that I can to do that. But I'm really not sure if it would do its job, right? Because I could not promise that. Because when I start something, it usually turns out something really different from what I think at first. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just because it's still running in my head, the question that you asked me. Also for other artists, I do think though that it's a beautiful gift to have if you have a platform. If you do have a platform, if you have people that are listening to you, sure, why not like telling them about your values, So, but I think, like I said, it's not a must, but I think it's a beautiful gift. And I think anything like that could be, used for good. And to me, it would be used for good. Yeah, in that sense.
You want to maybe read another poem? Maybe your poem With Kindness.
Ooh, sure. Let me find it. Where is it? There it is. With kindness. Don't forget them, your demons. Invite them to have a chat, a conversation, and rationally decide if you want them around. I choose to always make friends rather than enemies and spread kindness to those feelings of mine who want to see me fail. So I won't give up to them, those so-called demons. I will work with them to seek my highest potential by finding out from which potential they want to keep me away. What are they keeping me away from? Yeah, that's what kindness. And yeah, I don't know, like if I should take that away, if you want to tell me what you found out about that poem, but I mean, everybody knows that saying of like, you know, kill them with kindness. And I thought about that when I thought about like those so-called demons that everybody kind of like carries with them, right? Like, or shadows or whatever, traumas, I guess we could call them also. And yeah, I thought about what would happen if I just like kind of try to slay them or kill them with kindness rather than trying to see them as something bad, like demons, right? I think it's a very bad connotation to deal with something that everybody can relate to, which is traumas in one way or the other. Yeah. But maybe y'all want to tell me what you read from that poem or what your thoughts were when you read it. If y'all spoke about it, I'm not sure.
Earlier you mentioned how some people told you that you couldn't be an actress in particular spaces. And I think that that was kind of the emotion that I read that poem with. And so it drove one of my questions to ask you about like the advice you would give to people who create art or produce art, and like how we should approach uncomfortable spaces or spaces where we're made to feel unwelcome.
Yeah, totally. Right. Like all those last questions, like, who are they? And like, what do you, and like, who are they trying to keep me away from? Like, what is it? Like, is it their voices or is it my own voices that I'm hearing? Like, in regards to those demons that you just referred to, right? Because I really never said to myself that I couldn't be an artist. That was other people like planting this evil seed in my head. So yeah, definitely. That's definitely in there. Like also the line, who want to see me fail, is in that sense very self-referring, because I do wonder if it's myself. Do I want to see myself fail, or is it these other people who put these things on me that want to see me fail? Like, do I really want to take this and make it my own, like demons and issues now, or don't I rather want to release from them, accept that I know where they're coming from, and yeah, just like kind of give them a hug and be like, okay, cool, you're here, but you know, I'm just going to work with you. And they did, because they created this poem with me at the end of the day, right? Because I now wasn't afraid to talk about it and, you know, like describe this relationship I have with those thoughts and emotions. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That definitely answered my question.
And the who in that line is spelled like your name.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about your choice to use who in your name?
Mm-hmm. Like in general, you mean, like not in that verse, but just in general, how I came up with that artist name? Yeah, it has two very important reasons. One reason is that I really always didn't really feel familiar with my last name. My last name is a very German last name with also a meaning, I guess, like that people could use to make fun of me. I mean, I grew away from that when I got older, but still somehow I felt like if I really put myself out there and I want to, or like people would recognize me or something like with a name, then I don't want this ever to be a thing. Like I don't want this childhood trauma from back then to kind of somehow reoccur. So yeah, I definitely knew I wanted to have a different artist name. And then I also, while I had those thoughts, thought, why is it even that important that we carry these last names? Like, wouldn't Lena be really enough? Like, technically, it would be enough. At the end of the day, if I signed all my stuff with Lena and I have my own, what is it called? my own, because right, when artists have a specific style, it's almost called their own language, that they have their own language on their pieces of work. So I thought, if I have my own language, then why even worrying about people not recognizing it for it being Lena's work, like my work, right? So at the end of the day, I thought, who cares? Who cares about last names? And then though I realized, just Lena on Instagram, I cannot do that. There's 1,000 Lenas already there. And yeah, it is kind of really important these days to be on those, at least one of those platforms. And therefore, I chose Whooo, because I figured it kind of goes with this philosophy of like, I don't really want to take on a big last name and to be like a prestige thing at the end of the day. Like, that's something I kind of don't want my work to go, even though it's inevitable almost with success sometimes, that people then would go and be like, oh, isn't this an original Whooo? Like, this looks, I see the cube dude. Yeah, this must be an original Whooo. And like, I would not want it to be an elitist prestige thing, but at the end of the day, I do want the recognition, right? Like, I would be lying if I'd say I didn't want the recognition. But yeah, I guess that's definitely where it comes from, like me not liking really my last name like that, and the experience I have with my real name, and then also though not really caring about like the bus, like I don't know, like the Basquiat, right? Like or the Pollock, or like there's always this one last name, and I feel like that's a shame, because in that point it's highly capitalized, and it's like people don't really know the Jean-Michel behind the Basquiat, and I think that's a shame. And I don't know, I feel like I didn't want to embody that, so it's like, who cares? Like, Lena, yeah, who. And now it became a funny thing of like people remembering my name because they're like, woo, like making different sounds. Yeah, which is funny.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you're comfortable sharing, could you talk about the identities you carry and how those different identities intersect and influence you?
Can you repeat the beginning of your question one more time?
The identities you
Oh
carry.
yeah. Mm-hmm. And how it like influenced on me over time. I mean, I think it influenced me to that extent that I realized that my identity is very fluid. I know that I will not stop changing unless I'll stop having realizations about myself. And I think I will not stop having realizations about myself no time soon. Yeah, and it's really, it influenced me just in actually every way. Like, that's, I think, how I could answer it best, because it's all the way to like which choices I make in my daily life, like how do I eat, or like how do I sleep, or like how do I spend my time. I think everything is literally rooted in like me trying to figure out my identity, and acknowledging that there's like not multiple identities in the way of being split, but like just acknowledging the different sides of me that I have, you know, and really being able to tap into different energies when needed, or also being not just when needed, but also accepting different energies when they're just there. Yeah, it
Thank you.
definitely. No, like, thank you. Also just wanted to touch on that, like, if it's okay to share that, because I feel like to me it's fine, and I hope that everybody else is fine. But yeah, like, it helped me also to like came really open and proud of my queerness, which I think is also really important to people that still feel like they can't be proud and open about their queerness. So that also definitely helped, like when the more I kind of like worked about like my identity, the more I was able to actually see my identity. Yeah.
Who is your intended audience? And what are the gifts you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, I also was asked that question before, and I couldn't give a clear answer because I don't write for an audience specifically. But then, of course, I notice how when I read my pieces in different spaces, I notice how certain people respond to it. And I come to terms or come to find out that I think most of the people that I reach or that it speaks to best is people that I consider from my own community. So like Black people, queer people, like youngish people, yeah, but also people of color can relate a lot to the things that
Be
I
careful with that youngish.
Why, you're youngish, you can relate. No? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's what I think. Like but I wouldn't say that that's who I write for. I just feel like that's the people that resonates my work with a lot, and they tell me. Like maybe that's what it is. Like I just get mostly back from those type of people, and they come to me later and tell me like that this and that really spoke to them, that they really loved how I put this and that. Like, so I get responses from them more often. But also one time there was this, if I had to place him somewhere in age, I would say like 55, 60-year-old white German guy. And after a performance, he walked up to me and he was in tears. And he told me that he was so touched by a poem that I wrote, which is called Ich heil mich für dich. And there I speak, or I reflect on how I lost a friend of mine. She died of cancer. And it touched him so much. Like, I didn't even like go deeply into my sadness or whatever. I don't know how to explain it, but later on he came to me and he was so thankful. He wanted to hug me, and I think that's a very touching moment for me that I think about sometimes. And I'm like, I would have never expected this type of person. And with type, I really do mean like this white, older, hetero, cis guy, like to be so open to the things I'm saying and how I'm saying them. But yeah, there I was proved wrong. So I don't know, like I don't have a specific audience in mind, but I'm grateful that a lot of times I'm being mirrored, that it brings them some form of, yeah, either empowerment or peace, or like, I don't have the words in English right now, but what I want to say is the feeling of like being carried and being held and cared for, I guess. And those are beautiful emotions. So if that's what's being transferred over my work, plus reflection, then I'm happy, because then I think, yeah, I've done my deeds, what I feel like I want to do with my art, without being able to put this intention anywhere because I'm not able to do it. But I hope that that's what's coming out. Yeah.
We talk a lot in this class. I mean, the class is called right, Art and Resistance. And and though you said that you don't go into creating artwork necessarily with any intention, but you just kind of let the feeling and the moment kind of inform it. You know that some of the other artists we've spoken with or whose work we've studied go have a very like political tendency to their work, right? But it occurred to me as you were talking just now that as you perform that piece, right, about ich heile mich für dich, that and to connect with someone who is constructed as very different from yourself, right? That too can be conceived of as a form of resistance in some spaces, right? That very connection is resisting this sort of division of our society in these different groups that then, you know, doesn't end up serving anyone. in the end.
Exactly.
So I think that's very beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. Like, I would also say that that's a form of resistance, because I'm in so many spaces where I see where people are trying to really seclude themselves, and makes sense, because we need to heal in certain spaces. We can only do that with one another, but also I don't want to forget that I still want to be open for everybody in this world. Like, because it really, like, you never know who you're talking to. Like, there's so many beautiful hearts and people out there, and nobody is what necessarily they look like. And yeah, I agree. I think it's something very beautiful to like make those connections then throughout art, intergenerational, and yeah, all these other things that were combined there. Yeah.
What is next for Lena Whooo, and what are your big dreams?
Oh, wow. Okay, you want to hear the end goal dream. The end goal dream is a piece of land with a very there's this beautiful way of building houses. It's called earthship. And there you use, I guess, mud. I don't know if there's a different way to say or describe this specific mud, but you use mud and like bottles, glass and plastic bottles, and old tires to construct these really beautiful houses. And it would be amazing to have a space with one big hall house there where you could have retreats and seminars, and you could offer artists and residencies, and yeah, like just have a really beautiful creative space that yeah, that's kind of like nourishing, that feels nourishing to humanity, and that is not orientated on capitalistic standards. That would be like also be awesome if it's like self-sustainable, because these houses can do that. So it'd be nice if it really was a lot of land, so that people that are there in that time also can grow their own food and stuff. That's the end goal. But in order to reach that, I think I need to accumulate either a lot of money and or a lot of good people, like, network. Like, you need to know people to acquire land and to acquire funds to then do that. Like, so yeah, I think that's the end goal dream. And I think in order to get there, I just need to continue doing what I'm doing and it will get me there, I'm pretty sure. And then maybe some of you students can make their artist in residency there. Who knows?
That'd be so cool. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. Any other questions?
I kind of going off of actually like what you were just talking about, but we also, when we were looking through some of your work before today, we read about how you like to use like recycled materials, and when you were doing your like the city skyline, I can't remember what it's called, but it's all of like made out of glass and things like that. So I was just wondering if you could talk about like sustainability to you and kind of expand on that idea also.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sure. Like, it's a huge topic though for me. So please stop me if I'm not stopping, okay? But sustainability for me is actually like a huge matter. It has to do with me, of like a big part to do with me of decolonizing myself. Because yeah, like the way that we, and with that I mean like most of the Western worlds, consume and produce is ridiculous to the planet. It's ridiculous to most humans, like how they work in conditions, like starting from factory work to like how people having to get to resources so that we can buy cheaper phones or buy cheaper clothes and stuff. There's so much horrible facts out there in the world about living conditions of others. And I noticed that I do have an impact of like stopping it to a certain degree, right? Like, sure, H&M won't stop producing their clothes just because I don't buy there. And of course, also, I don't know, McDonald's won't stop producing their food just because I've been boycotting them for 10 years. But I personally feel really, really good of knowing that I had an impact of other developments or research areas being developed because I stopped buying certain things. And of course, this is adding to capitalistic marketing to an extent, in my opinion, at least, like, you know, because now I don't know, let's say the fair trade is now just another logo to make money with. Vegan, same thing, like it's capitalistic machinery behind it, but it is also active action. Like I really have not been buying new clothes for almost a decade. Like, I mean, okay, I'm lying. Every now and then there's like one new thing, like because I'm getting them from like corporations or something, but I do not go into H&M, into Primark, into Zara, all of these stores. I don't know, they make me really anxious these days because I've acquired so much knowledge about the bad stuff behind the scenes there. And also phones or electronics. Like I have a really, really bad feeling when my phone breaks down and I know I have to get a new one, because I don't want to buy a new phone. I really don't want to do that. And therefore I don't. I go to eBay or like Facebook Market, these type of places, and buy an old new phone for me, because I know this is not solving the issue of them being produced, but at least I don't add to the masses that are, you know, constantly giving the people that are doing the market research the sign that it's continuously another need that needs to be refilled, if you can follow me. So yeah, I feel like this has been a really big part also of my identity, trying to not cause harm. And I feel like I don't cause harm when I'm being sustainable. Yeah. Whew. Like I said,
Thank
long,
you.
long answer. Sorry.
No, no, that was great. I'm an environmental science major, and so I talk about all this stuff from the science side a lot, and so talking about it from the humanities side is also really interesting and helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, then I didn't even have to tell you all these things. You know way better than me, and you could even back me up with numbers, you know? Yeah. And that's why I think also it's so relevant, right? I think it's relevant for a shift to talk about these things, because we know now that there's like this doomsday clock basically, you know, like knocking if we don't change our habits. And most of these habits are, I mean, these big companies producing for us. And yes, like these companies probably won't stop if we continue to consume, but if we stop to consume, but I think that they have to change certain things if they notice that a lot of their customers are gone. And that has happened to a lot of brands or industry branches already. Like when I think about the I don't know the numbers, but I just know that there has been a big increase of plant-based milks, and that really people are like, they rather drink plant-based milks now than drinking baby cow food, like, which is great. I think this is a great transition that I think a lot of people, including me, have been part of, because we haven't been drinking milk for decades. Like, yeah.
Well, I hate to stop us from having so much fun, but in closing, I'd love to say thank you to Lena, Emily, and importantly, to Davidson College for allowing us to host so many critical international conversations like today. We are always grateful to and for our brilliant students who continue to astound us with their insight. Today's recording will soon be posted on our YouTube channel at Black Germans. Please subscribe and turn on the notifications so that you will be notified as new recordings are added. Visit our website at bghra.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Eventbrite For details about our upcoming events and our annual conference in February 2024. We hope that you've enjoyed today's conversation with Lena Whooo and the students at Davidson College as much as we have. And until next time, we thank you for your time and attention.